Wish is the mightiest spell a mortal creature can cast. By simply speaking aloud, you can alter the very foundations of reality in accord with your own desires. We really wish we had talked about divine intervention on our clerics show. So let's do that, Jim. WebDM. We missed it in the cleric show.
We did.
So let's talk about divine intervention and also about wish. Since they're basically kind of the same thing, but from a divine to arcane perspective.
Similar, abilities. So with divine intervention, any cleric spell is appropriate. I see that more as a starting point for that intervention.
Right.
And if you wanted to, you could interpret divine intervention a bit more in the manner of a wish than just a simple, pick a cleric spell that works for it. However, that said, any cleric spell, if you manage to get this thing, manage to roll under your level and percentile, any cleric spell is you could potentially have 9th level spell on your hands, which includes Gate. Yeah. Which is one of those where that opens up the door to the entire monster manual.
Literally and figuratively.
Both literally and figuratively, of what kind of aid your deity will send you. I imagine in a lot of situations, just one of the angels would be appropriate for a divine intervention. And so I guess the reason why I wanted to include divine intervention and wish together was because they're two abilities that have a ton of leeway. Almost to the point where it's if you're not prepared for it, or it catches you off guard as a DM, then you might not really be able to do the ability justice or play it well. Apart from the fact that it has a really low percentage chance of occurring until you get to 20th level.
Yeah, base 10%.
Base 10%. It's kind of interesting from my perspective, because the last time I really saw it used in the evil campaign by the Lich Death Cleric, it's the 2 times he used it before he got to level 20 happened to roll under his level and percentile, and so 2 times the divine intervention was able to go off. It was an interesting ability in the moment, sort of getting you out of a jam, crossing this mile-long chasm underground, or the first time he used it, which was to cause an earthquake in Midzabranzan. It's just an interesting ability that some DMs might look at it and go, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Right. What do you mean the deity intervenes? And they might be tempted to really rein in the power of divine intervention or rein in the power of wish, because they're worried about things getting out of hand, out of control, which it's certainly possible that it could happen. I mean, these are powerful abilities.
Whereas divine intervention is limited in how often it will work. On wish's side, there can be some drawbacks.
Wish is a spell that's in D&D that's kind of the gold standard for spells, the mightiest spell a mortal can cast,
right.
the spell says. And yet at the same time, I look at it and it seems like they are so worried about giving us an ability in the game that could be just I wish for X, something happens, that there's all these restrictions on it. I really do not like the 33% chance that you never get to cast this spell again. To me, that almost puts it in the I will never cast this spell.
Yeah.
You can use it to cast another spell, any other spell of 8th level or lower. That's great. I might use it for that, but I might have other things I want to use my 9th level slot for, gating in allies, using foresight to grant myself or an ally that buff for the duration. So I think that wish, having these big drawbacks to it,
right.
The physical weakness, the needing to the strength lowering, and then the fact that there's a 33% chance that you could never cast this spell again if you use it for anything other than casting another spell.
Well, another spell, or there is a small
window,
the item or the resistance or immunity for 8 hours. I mean, there are a few things outside of just a spell.
But the most interesting aspects of wish are the I wish for X. Something, whatever it is.
I wish for an extra set of arms.
An extra set of arms, whatever it is. And so I think that having that be the restricted part of the spell is one of those that I wish it were different. I wish that they would trust.
I wish that they would make your rolls.
I wish that they would trust the DMs and players to, by the time you're at 20th level, by the time you're casting 9th level spells and you're in tier 4, you have presumably taken that character through all these adventures. You are no longer a novice player.
Right.
Even if it's your first campaign. By the time you're that level and you've played through a whole campaign, you should, the DM and player should be able to work out what's going on with the wish without having this severe drawback that comes from the spell. So for me in my campaigns, I probably would get rid of the 33% chance to that you never cast it again.
Yeah, casting outside the normal parameters treats it kind of like a monkey's paw.
Right.
So would you still keep that part if they weren't specific?
Yeah, I would, and that's the point of wish. I see it as, it's less like a malicious as more literal.
Yeah.
So, unless you're getting a wish cast for you from like an Ifrit or maybe a Pit Fiend, if you're adding that ability back into certain Pit Fiends, then it's like a monkey's paw. Like, this is going to be detrimental to you. You will not like the outcome that comes with this. Instead, I see the wish spell as just very literal. And that's why precision in how you word a wish and what you hope for, you can't say, well, I intended it to be like this. It's like, no, you speak aloud your wish.
I just wish for a magic item.
Right. And so that the example they give in the spell description is, okay, well, maybe you're teleported to the current holder of that item. If this is first edition D&D, chances are the advice in the DMG is going to be like, that item's in the hoard of a dragon.
Or inside of a gelatinous cube. And you're teleported inside of a gelatinous cube with your hand on the sword.
I mean, there's just a lot of, there's a lot of different, it seems like there's a lot of people over the years in D&D who's been afraid of the power of the wish spell, and so it's come with all of this restrictions on it, which to me the mechanics don't quite match the flavor text of it, which is, this is the mightiest the mortal magic could aspire to and the greatest of wishes, but there's all these restrictions on what it can and can't do, and if you cast it too often you might run the risk of not being able to again, and it's very literal. So I don't know, it's a powerful spell.
Yeah.
And if you find that a wish has made it into your game, either because you've played up to high enough level and your wizard or whatever character has been like, yep, I want wish, and they take it as one of their spells, or they find an item that grants it, or there's a monster or an NPC who can cast it for them. It is possible, at least in some cases, for a wish to wind up in the game and the DM might not be ready for it.
Yeah.
Mostly through the player casting the spell. Even though I do think with magic like that it's worthwhile when you're that high level and you're picking your spells, that you communicate with the DM like, hey, I'm thinking of taking wish.
Right.
Is this going to be a problem? How are we going to work this out whenever I want to cast it?
Yeah.
Play at that high level does have to be a lot more sort of negotiated between player and DM. And so it shouldn't be, you should be conferring with your DM, like, here are the spells I'm picking.
There are certain contexts or situations that you're in where a player might want to elaborate on a wish, but not be able to because of the situation.
Because of the situation, yeah.
And I mean, how would you handle that?
If, say, you're using a wish under duration, or under duress, you don't have time to precisely word out the wish, you're casting it and it's like, it needs to happen right now. Like, and examples I'm thinking of that is, are you casting it in combat? Are you casting it in a situation where you have seconds or less to spare? You're casting it to save your life because your airship has blown up and you're falling out of the sky and you don't know what else to do. You need to save your crew. That's the kind of situation where I envision like a wish under duress, in which case keep the wish simple and keep it straightforward. I wish that we landed safely. There's a lot of different ways the DM can interpret that. They can, make it so that you're just safely landing on the ground. They can make it so that you're really, that fall wasn't from thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of feet. It was like a couple of foot. Yeah. The ground's just right there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways the DM can interpret that. That said, I used to let players write out their wish, and I don't anymore.
I think I know why.
Because I feel like when you sit down and start writing out a wish, it becomes this legalistic. And first off, I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to check, is the sentence a run-on sentence? Is it grammatically incorrect? Yeah. Then the wish might not work. And so I don't want to force a player in that position where they feel the need to write out this big long wish just to get what they want. But I do expect a precision in removing vagueness, being exact about what you want. It's okay if you say, hey DM, I want to talk to you person to person, player to DM. I want my character to do this. I want them to wish for XYZ. This is my intent for the wish. Is there a way I can phrase that or state that? Some DMs might say, I'm not going to help you with that. Like, this is your deal.
That's metagaming.
That's metagaming. You tell me what you want. Some DMs might say, well, yeah, let's kind of talk about this for a minute. I think I fall on that end
Well,
of the spectrum where I would say, let's talk about it first before you cast this spell.
yeah, because I mean, it's. I think everyone knows the style of DM you are. You want everyone to have fun at the table, within reason.
Within reason, I think that I think limitations and restrictions are an important part of D&D and an important part of having fun in D&D. But I also think that being overly antagonistic, which is what I see. No, I'm not going to help you resolve this thing. No, I'm not going to help you get what you want out of this experience or encounter or whatever it is. I think that's an overly antagonistic style of DMing. And I think it's much better to go, okay, well, let's talk about it. Your character wants to use this ability. What's the purpose of this? What are they trying to wish for? And I might not say use this wish. I might not say word it exactly like this, but as long as I kind of understand what the player's going for, what their intention is behind casting this wish, then that's going to help me, resolve that the outcome of that action, in a more, hopefully a more equitable manner.
Well, yeah, and also, if you have that conversation and they still don't word it properly, it gives you more ammo to twist it.
It gives you more ammo to twist it.
I mean,
yeah, and so
not to be a dick, but
no, but the spell does say the more powerful a wish, the more it tries to do, the more likely something will go wrong.
Right.
I find the fact that there's not a lot of guidance in the spell for what that looks like. It's unfortunate. Really, I think the spell should be like 3 or 4 pages, of advice and guidance on what should happen. But that's not what the spell offers up. It just says the more powerful the wish, the more likely it is to fail. So do you have a random chart that you roll on that you sort of assign the strength of the wish based on the scope of it, what it's trying to accomplish? Is it taking a life? Is it not? Is it creating something? Is it trying to get you something that you wouldn't otherwise have access to? Those are some of the questions I might ask myself when as a DM, if I'm presented with a wish.
Yeah.
It's going to help me see, if the player is wishing for a major villain to suffer a setback or a defeat or kill, then that's one of those things that's a major effect.
Yeah.
Even the wish spells, you just outright removing someone from existence is still difficult. So I don't know, the example they give for some of these for unintended consequences are interesting. They make for complications in the game. Removing you to a time and place where the villain doesn't exist might effectively remove you from the campaign. It might not.
Well, yeah.
Can you use a wish to undo a wish? Is another question DMs are going to have to ask themselves.
I think those charged with protecting fate and the integrity of time might have something to say about that.
Yeah, and this is where the rules of the game intersect with the lore of the game, and there are those inevitables and other outsiders that sort of protect the sanctity of.
Was it Timora?
She's one of the goddesses of luck. I don't know if she specifically governs wish spells, but certainly, gods of magic or spells would hold sway over the resolving of a wish spell in game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different resources you can use to bring to bear. I think the biggest thing is making sure that a player and DM are talking to each other about what they want the wish to do, or even what they want the divine intervention to do.
Right.
Right. Coming back to the cleric ability. What do they want it to do? Okay, let's use it. Now state your wish, state what you would like to have, state in the case of divine intervention, what kind of aid you're seeking.
Right.
If it goes off, if it's successful, then it's time to resolve that. Divine intervention, I would rule more favorably.
Well,
This is a deity intervening on the behalf of a petitioner.
Of a devoted follower.
And so I would be more likely to resolve that in a manner that's favorable to the player.
Yeah.
A lot of times I might just have an angel show up and be like, what do you need? And,
Yeah, and it's it's worth noting, even though there is the limited chance for it to happen, but the fact that you can get up to 9th level cleric spells, whereas Wish explicitly says 8th level and lower.
8th level and lower, yeah.
I mean, on some level, without consequence, divine intervention is more powerful.
In some ways, yeah. In the fact that there are the cleric spells that it can duplicate, mostly for me, Gate's the biggest one there.
Yes,
But,
yes.
you know, Mass Heal is another one, True Resurrection.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, yeah, but like the mass heal is kind of overshadowed by Wish's ability, because I think you can heal everyone and remove effects as if you cast Greater Restoration.
Yeah, and up to 20 other creatures, yeah.
And so that in and of itself is more powerful than a 9th level mass heal.
Right.
I think.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of on par, really.
Yeah, you kind of wish that there was, again, that they
You get one more and that's it.
That they would include the miracle spell from 3rd edition as sort of the cleric counterpart to
Right.
the Wish. So I don't know. I mean, divine intervention. I suspect that, first off, until you get to 20th level and it becomes an automatic thing, divine intervention is going to be fairly rare in a campaign. I mean, it's
Probably.
anywhere from 10 to 19% chance of it happening. They can try for it once a week, and so I'm not sure how often that's going to come up. So I would say if your player, as you've got that cleric and they're at that level and they make their roll and they get it, I would say that might be the only time that they're going to get to use this feature. So maybe lean more towards the player's side of it in resolving it. For the Wish, particularly the one that comes from a spell, and we'll talk a bit in a minute about wishes from monsters, which are a little bit of a different bag, and even wishes from items. But, you know, I interpret it literally. And it's okay to tell the player, okay, you know, we've talked a bit about why you're casting the wish, what's going on. I'm going to need some time to resolve it. And it might be like, we will resolve this wish next session.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the level of play that you're dealing with when you can cast wish yourself, that's just might needs to be what happens, because you might be dealing with things that the DM needs to consider. All right, what's going to happen if this wish goes through? Obviously, wishes that affect just the caster or just a small sort of like their impact is limited are going to be easier to resolve than wishes that have a huge scope or that affect other people other than the caster.
Yeah.
And so that's just something to keep in mind whenever you're resolving a wish. It's okay as a DM to say, hey, in order to do this right, I need some time to think about it. And to expect a DM to resolve a wish, you know, immediately right there without having time to have consider the ramifications of it, and without having time to do the spell justice, can lead to some encounters where you just don't you take the easy way out, or you don't you start interpreting it in the way that's the easiest for you to interpret it, as opposed to the most literal, and so then you start losing some of the interestingness that comes with a spell like Wish.
Yeah, like you mentioned, outside casting the spell as a wizard, there are other ways that you can get a wish.
There are other ways. The most notable one that I can think of is a noble genie.
Yeah.
Are able to grant between 1 and 3 wishes to any non-genie. It's arranged in such a way that you can't be the beneficiary. You can't like keep a genie on tap and once a year ask it for wishes.
Right.
They want to avoid that kind of thing.
And you can't have a genie do something to another genie.
Right.
Affectionately known as the Aladdin rule.
The Aladdin rule, yes.
See, no. I just made that up.
And so what we've got is a situation where there's potential. If you have, it's an optional rule for genies. It's not in the base mechanics of the monster. But if you do decide to have it, and you have a genie in your game that can grant wishes, then you know, just see what happens. Maybe. What do your players do with it? How do they react to having wishes, and what are they curious about? What are they wishing for? What are they going to do with that power? My advice to players is, if you get access to a wish, don't waste it. And we've said this when we were talking about the deck of many things.
Hang on to it for a while.
And hang on to it for a while. There's almost nothing that you can get from a wish that you can't get from just playing the game, like magic items and stuff. And you know, it's not like it used to be where wish was the only way you could raise your ability scores above a certain level, or wish was the only way you could create more permanent effects, things like that. In a lot of ways, wish is really toned down from previous editions and what it could do. And so I don't know. I think that there's other types of monsters that can grant wishes. It used to be that pit fiends could grant wishes. It used to be that Glabrazu could grant wishes. It used to be a whole host of monsters could grant wishes.
Yeah, you got to make that deal with the devil, right?
You got to make that deal with the devil, and that's why a Pit Fiend was so tempting for a player to interact with, because there was the possibility that this Pit Fiend will grant you your heart's desire. And it's just, you got to be careful. Of course, if I was running a Pit Fiend, I would make the player write out their wish.
Yeah, you got to sign a contract.
You got to sign a contract, and remember to watch out for invisible ink.
Have the invisibility on.
Right, have the invisibility on. Make sure it's written in a language you can understand and filled out in triplicate. What I would like DMs to keep in mind: don't be intimidated by them.
Yeah.
Interpret the wish literally. Talk to your player about their player intentions, and then if you need time, take that time to just think about the wish.
Yeah.
And if you need to, and you're in a you're in a situation where you think the wish is more of a monkey's paw style wish, that's where you really need that time to sit and think about, okay, what are the ramifications of this?
Yeah.
How am I going to resolve this issue?
Yeah, and like you said, if you have an item like a lamp, hang on to it, because you never know.
Because you never know, or
when you're going to be in a room,
or you never know. So this is the one. This is the last time that I remember really there being a wish, was that you guys were in the room filling up with sand. You were in some the tomb of the builders. It was called. That's really all I can remember. It was like a tomb inside the dungeon that was underground. It was like a nesting doll of dungeons. And then you got into a room, and there was sand pouring in, and you couldn't get the door open. You couldn't plug up where the sand was coming out from. I don't remember where you got the wish from in the first place.
Well, it was a lamp with a genie in it, and it only had one wish left. It was one of those things where it only has one wish.
Gotcha.
And so we used it to teleport the fuck out.
Yeah.
Except it teleported us like how many miles?
Several thousand miles to the east of where you guys were, and then
basically we were over here in Europe, and it teleported us to the Far East Asia.
Basically, yeah. And then you guys had to get back and it wasn't everybody. It was a big break, and I think at that point in the campaign we're like, okay, it's going to take you guys a while to get back, so it's like a 3-month break as you guys make your way back. And the genie was just didn't really care that he'd dragged you out there. It was just like, this is where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so that's where you ended up.
So yeah, be careful what you wish for, players.
Be careful what you wish for. And I would my hard and fast rules for wishes are: I will just say absolutely no to wishes that are targeted at other players. In a vindictive sense, I would say no to wishes that are intended to cut out a portion of the campaign that other people are finding fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like, those are the kinds of things that's why I would want to talk to the player beforehand, because I might say, hey, so and so is having, half the rest of the group is enjoying this part of the campaign. If this wish goes through, that's cut out for them. Is there another way that we could word it or talk about it, or you could use the wish?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's probably not going to come up in most campaigns. It's a high-level ability, and monsters that can use it are very rare. It's easy for a DM to say, I'm not going to include luck blades. I'm not going to include decks of many things. Not going to allow rings of wishes.
Yep.
There's no noble genies in here, and you can even say there is no wish spell. When you get to the ability to cast 9th level spells, that's not an option. Pick something else.
Yeah.
But it is sort of like the gold standard for spells, and in some campaigns, wish level magic was like 9th level spells, and wish level magic was just the beginning of real magic.
Yeah.
And so, maybe if you've never used it, never had a wish, maybe try it out, see what happens.
The more you know.
Ta-da! Give you their D&D adventure that they based off of Manos Hands of Fate.
I did see that link. That's weird.
It was up on DM's Guild, but then they asked them to take it down from DM's Guild because it was a different IP.
Yeah, because they're really gonna sue over Manos to handle it.
Really?
Come on, Trav. You know you want to play in that.
Play Manos.
Could have the soundtrack going on in the background.
Jim, scoot to the left.
You can make Crow.
Oh man.
I'd make whatever we do. We kill Torgo first thing.
Don't tempt me, Frodo. Yeah, you kill Torgo early, or the master will do it for you.
And he'll probably stroke your hair.
All right, guys.
It would be fun to do.
Clap on top.
It would be fun to make characters that were completely normal people to play that.
Yeah.